I had a 7K per month content and ads agency. My clients were getting results, my revenue was predictable, but I was completely burned out. And I realized I didn't build a business, I built a job I couldn't quit. So I did something most people would call stupid. I dropped some of my clients and I paused my marketing, which cut my revenue in half. And now my business is making more, I work half the hours, and I actually had my life back by transition and expand from done for you to consulting. And in this video, I'm walking you through the real reason why I made the change, the structural problems with done for you most people ignore, and the exact step-by-step process I used to transition without blowing everything up. So if you're running a done for you agency and you feel like you hitting the ceiling, then this video is perfect for you. All right, so let me tell you what was actually working first, because this wasn't some desperate pivot where my agency was dying. I had to do something about it. My revenue was around £5,000 a month, so 7K USD. My clients were getting really good results from our services. I had a setter, an editor, and the infrastructure you're supposed to have when things are working. So on paper, it looks like I'm doing everything right. And honestly, most people at that point would just keep going to grow more, add more clients, hire more people, and that's the playbook, right? You've got consistent cash flow, you've got proof it works, you've got the identity of being a successful agency owner, which feels like you finally made it. So why stop? But look, here's the problem. I was working 60 hours a week. Every single day, I wake up at 7 and I'm already behind on my tasks. My clients needed updates and my 3-person team needed some direction. And there's always some ads needed tweaking. It's just constant fires. And there was no off switch. I couldn't take a weekend without my phone blowing up, and I couldn't go on a full day without thinking about someone's campaign or stressing about whether their results would hold. So I made the transition, not because the agency model was broken, but because I hit a ceiling, and it wasn't a revenue ceiling. It was more of a leverage ceiling. And I knew if I didn't take action on this, I would just stay stuck here forever. So once I realized I needed to make this change in my business, I didn't just make an emotional decision and start from scratch. I actually sat down and looked at the numbers, because I want to understand, was this just me being burned out and emotional, or were there actual structural problems with the model that weren't going to go away no matter how hard I worked? And when I broke it down, it was pretty clear to me there were 3 big issues. And the first one is margins. When you're running a done-for-you service, your costs stack up fast. You've got your team, you've got softwares and tools, you've got ad spend, and then there's all the time you're spending managing delivery, doing quality control. Every single client you add increases that load. So yes, your top line revenue goes up, but your cost to run a business are climbing right alongside it. Your business is making more, but you're not actually keeping that much more after everything's paid out. I did the math on my own setup. After I paid my setter, my closer, and yes, I didn't mention the closer earlier, and my editor with all the softwares, ad spend, and factored in the hours I was personally putting in, I was keeping 50% profit. And when I actually calculated per hour, I realized I was basically working a job, not running a business. The margin wasn't there, not for the amount of effort it took me to keep everything running. And the second thing is scalability. In a done for you model, every new client doesn't just add revenue, they also add operational complexity. It's not like a course or product where you build it once and you sell it to 100 people. Every client needs to be onboarded, needs their own strategy, needs management, weekly check-ins, and obviously results. And if anything breaks in that chain, it doesn't just affect one thing, it creates a ripple effect. I realized pretty quickly I had a ceiling. I could probably handle 16 clients max before the whole thing would just collapse on its own weight. And sure, I could hire more people to take some of that load off, but then I'm not running a business, I'm managing a team. And every person I add is another dependency, which is another thing that could break. So the model doesn't scale cleanly, it grows. But with my experience back then, it would only get messier and messier the bigger it gets. The third issue is dependency. Your income in a done for you model is tied to so many different variables you can't actually control. So your team's performance, the platform change, clients, and then your entire delivery process has to adjust based on that. If one client had a rough month, they panic and they leave after the agreements. And now you've got a hole in your revenue you have to fill. It feels stable when it's working, but it's way more fragile than it looks. You're always one external change away from everything goes. And the model itself had built-in limitations. I could keep working, grinding, push revenue a bit higher, maybe get to 20, 25K a month, but I would always be operationally capped, always trading my time and attention for that revenue, and always dependent on other people executing well. There was no version of this where I could step back and it still run. That's why I finally understood the real difference. Done for you scales revenue. You can grow the number, but consulting scales leverage. You can make the same amount or even more with less clients, way less operational complexity, and actually have control over your time. And the model wasn't wrong. It just wasn't built for the kind of freedom I was trying to create. All right, so here's the part most people actually want. How I did it, how I moved from done for you to consulting without drop my revenue to zero or burning all my client relationships. I'm going to walk you through the 5 exact steps I followed. So first thing I did was look at my client list and actually categorize them, not just by their revenue level, but by what they actually needed from me. So I broke them into 3 tiers. So tier 1 was clients who genuinely needed the full done for you. They didn't have the capacity, the knowledge, or honestly just the desire to execute themselves. They just want it done. And these were the clients I either kept as is or planned to phase out as I transitioned fully. Tier 2 was client who could execute with guidance. They had some internal capability. Maybe they had a team member who could handle the work, or maybe they've done it themselves before, but just needed direction or oversight. These were my main consulting candidates, and this is where I knew the transition could happen. Tier 3 is clients where I was doing way more than necessary. I was over delivering because that's how the relationship started, but they didn't actually need it. Maybe they had internal people who could be doing 70% of what I was doing if I just told them what to do and the direction to go for. When I went through this little exercise, I realized I had a couple people I was working with in tier 3. I was managing the entire ad account, writing all the copies, doing weekly reporting calls, just basically being the full marketing team. And to be honest, that's what I started off as. But they could internally handle most of that if I just give them the framework and check in every week. But I was doing it because that's what we agreed on originally, not because they actually needed it. So I made a list of who actually needed the full done for you and who could execute with my direction, who was I overservicing, and that audit became my roadmap. So tier 2 and tier 3 clients were the ones I started transitioning first. Next, and this was the big one, I had to extract my intellectual property from the delivery work because my IP wasn't the execution, it was the decision I was making during execution. So I've done ads strategy over 50 times at that point. I had a process, I had a framework, I just haven't put a name on it because I was operating on instinct. But that instinct was my competitive advantage. That's what clients were actually paying me for. So I answered these questions for myself. So what decisions do clients always rely on me for? What process do I repeat with every client? What advice do I give over and over again? And what's the 20% of my work that's creating 80% of the results? So for me, it was a framework for ads and sales. It wasn't just running ads. I had a specific way I structured campaigns, a way I tested creatives, a process for how I scale winning ads and kill losing ads. And I guess you can say frameworks for reading data and knowing when to pivot. So client didn't actually need me to click buttons in the ads manager. They needed my decision-making process. They need to know what I was seeing and why I was making the decisions I was making. So I pulled that out, I documented it, I turned it into a system they could follow with my direction. And that became the foundation of my consulting offer. In the done for you model, I did the work and the client got the results. In the consulting model, I gave them the framework, the guidance, the direction, and they did the work. I guided their decisions and they still got the same or better results. But now I'm leveraged. I wasn't trading hours for money anymore. I was trading my expertise. So I spent about a week documenting what I did, what was my framework, what was my process, and every time I made a decision on a client account, I wrote down why I made that decision, and that became my IP. That's what I started selling in the consulting model. Before I could fully transition, I needed to create space. I couldn't layer consulting on top of a maxed out done for you operation. I've just burn out faster. So I had to reduce the complexity and I made 3 moves to do that. So first, I cut the low margin clients. I had clients paying me less than 1K per month, but taking 3K worth of my time and my energy. They were costing me. They weren't profitable. So I either let them go or I raised the price to a point it was actually worth it after the agreement. And second, I raised prices before reducing fulfillment. I didn't just drop my service level and keep the price the same. That's how you lose trust with your clients. I either charged more for what I was keeping or I let existing clients stay on old model while only offering the new model to new clients moving forward. And third, I stopped customization creep. Every time I customized something new for one client, I was creating operational complexity. So I standardized. If clients needed something outside my core system, I either refer them out or I charge a premium price for it. But this is very, very rare. This only happened to me once. But new model and the investment anchored the value very differently, and I freed up about 10 hours a week just from that. And here is what changed. Before, I had 8 clients, 7 to 8K USD a month. Damn, that's just crazy to even think about now. And I work 60 hours a week. And after cutting and repricing, I had 5 clients working maybe 30 hours a week, same revenue, and that's what I was aiming for. Now, here's the key. I didn't go from folding for you to pure consulting overnight. That would have been too jarring for clients and way too risky for my revenue. So I introduced a middle layer, a hybrid model, and I came up with 2 options I could test. So option 1 is strategy and oversight. I would build a plan, they would execute it, and I would review it and adjust it on a weekly basis. This felt like the safest transition model. I wasn't doing the work anymore, but I was still heavily involved in the business and decisions, making sure it was done right. And option 2 is partial execution. So this is where I would handle the high leverage pieces. So strategy, messaging, or creatives. And they would go handle the execution. They do the boring work, uploading the ads, pulling reports, scheduling the post, whatever. I would still be doing some work, but only the parts that require my knowledge, not my time. So I went with strategy and oversight. I would spend about 3 hours with them building out a client's ad strategy, content strategy, and sales. I walked them through on a call or on Loom, showing them exactly what to do, how to set it up, what to watch for. Then they would go execute. And we would have a 60-minute call every week where we review the performance together, tell them what to adjust, what to stop, what to scale, and then they go do that. So I went from spending 15 hours per client per month to go about 46 hours per client in a month. And they still got the same results because the strategy was solid. And here's how I thought about it. Folding for you is I do 100% of the work, and hybrid model, I do 20% and they do 80%, and I guide the decisions. And pure consulting, I do 5%, they do 95%, and I just review and advise. It's a spectrum. I slide along it gradually. So here's what I did. I picked just one client. I tested the hybrid model with them. So if they could execute with my guidance, and it worked. So that validated the model I'm going for. Then I rolled it out to the rest of my clients and keep refining and improving while I'm working with them. And the last step, I had to change my messaging. I couldn't keep talking like I was a done for you agency owner while I was trying to sell consulting. It didn't work. People get confused. So I made a change on how I positioned myself publicly. And there are 3 things. So first, I changed my messaging. I stopped talking about what I did. I started talking about what my clients learned to do with my guidance. And this changed me as the executor to me as the advisor who made them capable. Second, I leaned into thought leadership. I started creating content that showed my framework, the way I think, and etc. So this positioned me as the strategist or the consultant, not the doer. I was teaching people how to frame things, not just what to do. And third is my content framing. I stopped posting case studies that said, we did this and got this results. I started posting breakdowns like, here's a framework I used to help clients go from X to Y, same results, different framing. So one positioned me as the person who does the work, and the other positioned me as the person who knows how the work should be done. Here's a quick example for you. I used to run ads for the real estate industry. So I stopped saying we help realtors scale with paid ads. I started saying we help realtors build a scalable ad system without needing to hire an agency. It's the same outcome, but completely different positioning. You see the difference? I wasn't the hands anymore. I was the brain behind the business. Those were my 5 steps: audited my clients, extracted my IP, reduced operational complexity, and introduced a hybrid layer, and also changed my positioning. I didn't do them all at once. I did them in order. And by following this process, I transitioned from done for you to consulting without starting my whole business from scratch or burning my relationships with my clients. And now let me show you what actually changed after I made this decision. When I started transitioning clients from done for you to the hybrid model, my revenue dropped. I dropped to 4K for a while because some clients didn't want the new model. They want someone to do it for them. And when I told them that's not what I'm offering anymore, they choose to leave. And this will make you question if this is the right call. But the revenue came back and came back stronger. Within about 3 months, after officially starting consulting, I was back at the same revenue, 7K USD. And then I hit 10K and then 20. But here's the difference. I did it with less clients. As I fully transitioned to consulting, I went down to 4 new clients and making more than I used to make with 8 clients in 1 month. And those 4 clients were way easier to manage because I wasn't doing the work for them. I was just guiding the direction. And my margins got better. Before, I was keeping 50% after everything, and now I keep 80% because I didn't have the same cost. I didn't need a big team. I didn't need all the softwares and tools. I just needed my knowledge and my time. And my time was worth way more in this model. But the biggest change wasn't even the revenue, the income, it was time freedom. I went from working 60 hours a week to working maybe 30 hours a week, and that's being generous. Most weeks, it was closer to 25. In the consulting model, I still cared a lot about results, but the execution wasn't on me anymore. I gave clients the strategy and they could take action. And if they didn't do the work, then that's on them. I wasn't responsible for clicking the buttons. I was responsible for giving them the right plan and the mental shift of not carrying everyone's execution on my shoulder. That was the most freeing part. So yes, there was a dip, but it was only temporary. And what I got on the other side, better margins, more time, less stress, better health, it was all worth it. I wouldn't go back. Before I wrap this up, I need to say something. This transition isn't for everyone, and I'm not saying that to be exclusive or whatever. I'm saying it because it's true. Done for you isn't a bad model. It works. A lot of people are crushing it with agencies. It's just a stage in business. And depending on where you are right now, it might be exactly what you need. If you're just starting out, if you don't have a system yet, you're still trying to get your first few case studies and figure out what actually works, then stay in done for you. You need the reps. You need to get your hands dirty and understand the execution before you can teach someone or guide someone else to do it. You can't consult on something you've never actually done. So if that's where you're at, don't rush this. Build the foundation first. Get good at what you do. But if you're at a point where you're hitting the ceiling, like you're operationally maxed out, you're working 50, 60 hours a week, your revenue is decent, but you're trading all your time for it, and you can't see a way to scale without just piling up more stress. And then that's when you should start thinking about this. If you want more leverage and not just bigger revenue number, and you're thinking 5 to 10 years out, and you don't want to be still managing a huge team. And honestly, if you just want your life back, if you want to work a bit less, take a weekend without your phone blowing up, consulting model gives you that. Done for you really doesn't, at least not easily. So here's how I think about it. Done for you isn't wrong. Again, it's a stage. It's how you build the skills, the systems, the proof that you actually know what you're doing. But at some point, if you want real leverage, you have to evolve. You have to let go of being the person who does everything and become the person who knows how everything should be done. And consulting is that evolution. It's not better than done for you. It's just different. And it's built for a completely different outcome. Look, you don't just change your business structure because you're bored. You change because you reached the ceiling, like I've been saying this whole video. And if you're sitting here feeling stuck, you making money but not having time, and working harder but not getting more leverage, you've probably already hit that ceiling. And I made this transition because I had to, and it gave me my life back. So if you're a done for you agency owner, done for you operator feeling the same pressure I felt, then this is a roadmap. Follow it, test it, and adjust it to your own situation. So if you want to know more about this and how I did it more specifically, give me a text on Instagram and I'll get back to you. And also subscribe, and appreciate watching. See you in the next video.